I never expected my quiet Texas ranch to become an HOA battleground. I'd owned this land long before the nearby development appeared. My property had its own fences, driveway, barn, and private road. And most importantly, it wasn't part of their HOA. The new neighborhood had grown rapidly around my ranch. Soon, HOA signs started appearing along the roads surrounding my property. I ignored them because they had nothing to do with my land. At least, that's what I thought. Then Karen became the HOA president. She decided my ranch was making the neighborhood look unfinished. She complained about my old barn, fences, trucks, and ranch equipment. I told her politely that none of it was her business. Karen wasn't satisfied with my answer. She claimed my ranch was somehow subject to community standards. Then she decided to send people to inspect the property. That was the first serious mistake she made. I pulled out my original property documents. The boundary lines were crystal clear. My ranch was a separate parcel with its own legal access. There was no HOA easement across my land. I checked every detail twice. The ranch existed independently from the surrounding subdivision. The HOA had no authority over my property. So I put the documents away and went back to ranch work. A few mornings later, I heard vehicles approaching. 2 black SUVs came slowly down my private driveway. They weren't county vehicles. They were HOA patrol vehicles. Mark and Ryan stepped out wearing black uniforms. They walked toward my gate like they owned the place. I pointed toward the private property sign. They told me they were there for an HOA inspection. I asked them one simple question. Show me the document giving your HOA authority over my ranch. Mark couldn't produce one. Instead, he repeated that they were following HOA instructions. I told them they needed to leave the property entrance. They said they only wanted to look around. I told them they could look from the public road. They didn't like that answer. Then Karen arrived herself. She stepped out of her SUV carrying an HOA binder. She looked at my gate and then at me. Her first words were, "You need to cooperate." I asked her to explain exactly what rule applied to my ranch. She started listing HOA regulations. I reminded her that I wasn't an HOA member. Her expression changed immediately. I held up my property documents. Karen barely looked at them. She said the HOA had community interests in maintaining the area. I told her community interests didn't override private property rights. Karen became frustrated. She told the officers to document my refusal. Then she accused me of obstructing an HOA inspection. I simply told them they were trespassing if they crossed the gate. I didn't want anyone crossing onto my land. So I retrieved my rifle and stood well inside my property. I kept it pointed safely downward and made my position clear. This is private property. Do not come any farther. The officers immediately stopped moving forward. They understood that this wasn't an HOA parking dispute anymore. Karen looked stunned that the situation had escalated. I told everyone to stay outside my fence. Karen pulled out her phone. She said she was calling the authorities. I told her that was exactly what she should do. Finally, someone official could settle the property dispute. A few minutes later, a county sheriff's deputy arrived. Daniel stepped out and immediately assessed the situation. Karen rushed toward him with her HOA documents. She started explaining her version first. Daniel listened carefully to Karen. Then he asked the officers where their authority came from. They pointed to the HOA documents. Daniel looked at the property sign and asked to see my deed. I handed Daniel my deed and property survey. He studied the boundary lines carefully. Then he looked back at Karen. And the next thing he said changed the entire situation.